Everyone. All right. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. And so today I just want to start by saying my screens are going to be a little bit messy. So let me know if it kind of is not visible or something. And that's only because I have slides, but then I'm also going to walk through some screens, like actual tools and platforms, trying to make this more like a show and tell and a workshop format. Let's see how that goes because it's usually better if you just have slides to pass, and like talk through. But stop me if there is any problem with either hearing or seeing through my slides during the discussion today. Once again, if you are joining back, you know me, I am Yashkin Desai, but for those who haven't been on the previous sessions, I am the founder and principal of Ariana Digital and our new startup, myndQ.ai. And myndQ.ai, just to make a quick mention there, is a startup positioned for empowering so AI and talent that is empowered by AI. So future that is turbocharged through talent powered by AI. And that's the whole idea, the mission behind it. And this becomes part of that agenda, that mission that we have, where we want to bring in AI education, AI talent programs to small businesses, and then also to our clients. So that's where myndQ.ai comes in, a little bit about that there, and let's move on. So jumping in, these are our standard disclaimers where we have to mention and be transparent that we are not a law firm and we are not legal professionals. So anything that is discussed here will need to be reviewed from a legal perspective. Also, from a consulting standpoint, this does not include the due diligence that we typically do for your specific scenario or your business. So that needs to be kept in mind when applying recommendations from some of the platforms, because this is more a general outlook towards the AI platforms that we have. So having said that, the agenda or the outline for today, it's twofold. And this is based on some of the questions that were posed in the previous two sessions. So I wouldn't mind if you guys let me know where you want to start. So the first part is the tools and platforms that are generally used or recommended as a starting point for small businesses in the areas that matter. And then the second one is a chat about the various LLM providers or frontier AI providers and their models, along with where their security constraints are and how to manage them, kind of showing them across some of the screens which have popped open in my Chrome browser in the back. So with the show of hands, let me know where you want to start, and I can, because it's a two-part discussion today. Any preferences? I do have the platforms to start here, and then the second part is where I talk through the LLMs. Is that good? I'm thinking that's a positive answer. Let's start there. And feel free to pop in your questions along the way if you have any, and if I have answers today, I'll definitely put them out there. And if not, then we will circle back with, I consult like my team and put those answers out there. So it's a large space, and not every tool, every feature is something that we'll be able to talk and present today. So let's start here. In the first section that I was mentioning, what we're going to look at is the big areas that small businesses really need to concern about. Because right now, if you look at what's out there, there's an overload of information, and there are thousands of tools, like hundreds and thousands of tools popping each day, coming up with a new feature. So what we want to talk about is how do we manage that, and how do we start and grow in our AI journey from there? Would be identified based on our interactions with our prior clients, our own experiences, is there are three key areas that we could start with. Communication tools, this is important both internally and externally. A lot of times, as we know, if you're an agency, that's a whole different story. But even for other businesses, it could be a healthcare firm or a construction or a restaurant, doesn't matter. There is communication with the team, and then there is your external social media or marketing communication. So let's talk about that and some of the tools that we recommend in that space. Then there is the sales and marketing piece. So ads was the communication part. Then there's the sales and marketing. If you are having RFPs or if you're scheduling, trying to get in more leads, how do you handle that? And what tools do we have there? And finally, we have operations and efficiency, which will actually lead into next discussion, which is session 4 on automation. So let's jump right in. Obviously, based on what I said, here's always the why, the stats behind it. We do have the 72% productivity that has been claimed through research and surveys by McKinsey. There is HubSpot, which is a great CRM, showing about 3x times content generation. So the first part was all about content generation. Second was about automation. And so we do see, so small businesses are always looking for productivity gain. Like we want to do more with less. So that's the number out there, about 15K. Now this changes in different surveys each day, but that was a number put out by Salesforce, and 40% uptake in response time with AI-powered automation tools. That was from Zendesk, which is a support platform. Now let's go into the first section, which is communication tools. I did see somebody post out fireflies.ai for note taking. So we do have that on the list here. If you're not using one for that internal communication piece, or even like when you're chatting with your customers, your clients, and you need a quick way to transcribe your meetings, you want to summarize and build that into action plan, this is a good starting point. Now, I will also give you the runway for this. Once you have the notes with automation, which comes next, that can be translated into actions. And we'll see some tools. Like if you're on Copilot, Copilot has ways to translate the outcomes of these transcribed meetings into action items. So that's where you start. And then the runway is with the automation, where you take in more productivity gains from that. But even as a starting point, it is a great area. Another great option, which I have used, if you're on Teams, then there is Teams Mastro and Otter.ai. These are your alternate solutions. And when looking at these, what I would suggest, and it's not just for like this specific tool, in general, what we look at is what is it that your business is going after, right? If you're an agency, your outlook, your approach is different from when you are a smaller firm doing this for yourself or for your set of clients. So look at the pricing, look at the security. Is this internal data or is it external data? That really encapsulates what you will be looking at when deciding on tools. And there are a lot of options in the market, and pricing plays a big role, of course. Now, there are a few other things that I've mentioned here. Just show off hands on if you have worked with any of the other tools. I believe Canva is a popular one with most small businesses. So raise your hand or just, yeah, there. I do see raise of hands. So Canva is a pretty good starting point for creative aspects in your business. And the alternate to that is Adobe, right? So Adobe is a more enterprise stack. We as Adobe partners work with the whole suite of Adobe applications. I can quickly switch up to show you both of these if you haven't by any chance or worked with these before. So with Adobe, you have in the communication or in the creative front, you have the Firefly. What Firefly allows you is to create those images or create those videos based on integrations into existing top models. So anytime I mentioned Gemini, Nano Banana, one of the engines that we used for creating images in some of the previous slides, typically you will get garbage, when it comes to text, but then there are some super strong models that you can choose and select. And so let's say tomorrow there's a new model coming out, you would have that available here for selection. Pricing definitely is a factor in terms of what becomes available to you, but this is another place. So Adobe Express and Adobe Firefly is a great place for you to start. And just like in Canva, it takes a prompt. Let's see. I had Canva open as well. Here we go. So be it Canva or be it Adobe, so I'm showing you two options there in terms of creatives and communication. So if you go in and you create, you have the same option to get into creating, putting in a prompt. So Magic Writer, if you're doing writing creatives, you put in a prompt saying, okay, let me create, let's say, now prompt writing. We spoke about prompt writing. You will need to identify what is your goal and what are the constraints that you want to base it on. So if you're creating an Instagram post, for example, you would say, I need, and I'm going to not type this, but I need an Instagram post for AI tools webinar. How about that, right? And you go with, that's the starting point. It helped you write up a script, which you can then intake into your templates and put it through a design. And I will actually show you some of the prompts here that I had staged for the brand colors. So previous two slide decks were looking very similar, but they were created at different times. And the idea there was you write up a prompt, get your script done, you have your input text, and then you break it up into slides with your standard prompt formats where you have your brand design and you lead that into your presentation. So that's just one example of how you can start using Canva or Adobe Express for starting on the communications part. I think that is where a lot of people are already using it. So it's a refresher for anyone who hasn't started or who is using it. If you have questions, we can dig into certain advanced features there. So any advanced feature questions that you would like to take a look at today? Okay, so let's keep moving on. So we are going to get into Claude, and we are going to take a look at the Claude's privacy settings in probably towards the end, in the second half. Let's quickly walk through the recommendations that we have for the remaining set of platforms here in the other sections that matter. So starting with communication and creatives, the next part is now that you have this, where is the delivery? How do you want to set up this delivery? And an ideal place to start, as we have outlined here, is find a spot in your company or in your organization that is intensive in terms of resources or time, and then outline steps or modules or templates to make sure that you put that in a loop. So that's where that productivity gain comes in. What I just showed you with one prompt, you're like, okay, how does this help me very much, right? But when you start bundling that up together, saying, okay, now I have my big one paragraph, I created my long form content, I have my 15 creatives ready. Now let's start putting this into a schedule. That's where you're going to start seeing those gains. And then you tie that into your sales or marketing channels through other platforms. So these are the interviewed platforms, intertwined platforms, I would say. So buffer.com is it's like a free platform. It has minimal functionality, but it allows for small businesses to start with AI-based social scheduling. There is also Jasper. Again, Jasper in terms of pricing might be a little bit pricier, has a tremendous functionality in terms of taking your written content, tuning it to your audiences, and then pushing it into your distribution channels. HubSpot, if you haven't heard, this is a very popular CRM. I know this is also traditional. This is from our digital age, right? So this CRM, like Salesforce, is from the digital age. However, they have automation tools built in and AI suggests, which allow you to now expand your existing campaigns. So you don't need to switch to a whole new world. You can build in integrations and switch into these new tool sets or marketplace tools to extend your existing campaigns and take advantage of AI. Here, like I mentioned, is something you can try if you haven't already set up a content loop. Uh, Take your existing video. Let's say if you have YouTube videos from the past, parse them through Gemini, and we'll show you Gemini actually has a native way of parsing through the content that you have in your YouTube videos, taking it out, transcribing it, and now you have this, 100-page document. Put that, and plus you have your ongoing transcriptions from your meetings. You can feed that into Claude and have Claude post out, make those suggestions for a bunch of posts. Take those posts, put them into Buffer, and have Buffer schedule those for you. And the schedule is decided based on the best time for your audience that AI will suggest. So this is taking a lot of that unknown off your hands and making tasks very simple and repetitive. So this helps you bring the story together. If I just say, oh, use Canva, or type in a prompt, or use Claude, it really doesn't show you the productivity. That is where people lose on how is AI really helping me. It is when we bring it into a sequence. We identify our problem statement where we are actually putting a lot of work and effort and where there is subjectivity, and tie that into a loop. That's where you're going to get your benefit. So now we are moving on to the operations or efficiency part, right? Content, easy peasy. We know we are into it. As digital media professionals, we have always been in that space. So content comes easy, creatives comes easy. And then the looping part may be something new for some of the businesses, right? To create those. But then the next step to take this forward is how can I then tie my various tools and tool sets, my project management, my day-to-day work, my project management. Oh, I have Firefly, or I have my notes, but I also have my, if you look for a platform for project management, you might have an old Trello, or you might have an old Jira. Now they do have AI modules. I'm not going to say they're not better. So you might want to look at the best AI modules to plug into your existing ecosystem, which is what I keep saying. Or if you're looking for a AI forward tool set, which looks at, the Notion.ai is a great project management tool. And I don't know if I have Notion open right now, but what it allows you to do is if you're in a meeting, or so let me give you an example. I was in this session, a workshop, and then I was in an event where a lot of speakers were talking a lot of different things. All I had to do was, obviously with their permission, knowing that they were okay with this, we were able to record some of the pieces that are important. We were able to take pictures of things that were important. At the end of the meeting, 30 minutes later, all I had to do was write a prompt and say, create a post. And that post then went into Buffer. And 15 minutes after that live, we had for this client that we were serving, we had their post ready in real time. So if you are into media, you really want to tap into the efficiencies, not just for productivity, but for what you can bring to your clients and your customers. So that was one of the examples on Notion.ai. Zapier and Calendly, Zapier, Subsay, or Make.com. These have been brilliant automation tools, API tools for a long time, where if you want to automate something without code, then this is your place to go. I actually have Zapier open in one of the screens here. Let's see. I actually had Buffer open as well. And some of the note-taking tools. So if you guys are interested in any one of these, we can definitely take a look. There we go. So here's what it does. And I wanted to show this visual to show how powerful this can be, right? In here, what I was trying to do is for, let's assume myndQ, but this is really a tool from a client where we needed webhooks to come in. Now, who knows webhooks? What are they? We don't know that. These are signals that come in from platforms, and these can be from any platform. It can be from your CRM. It can be from a HubSpot or a Salesforce. And it used to be very technical, but what Zapier has allowed us to do is create Zaps where you just write a prompt saying, integrate my database from X, let's say Salesforce, and allow data Y to pull in for my chatbot. And in few steps and a little bit of configuration here, it allows you to do that configuration. So now you're pulling in all the context. So we've been talking so much about context, right? And that is what helps us get better results. So this allows you to read the context, sometimes even without copying it, right? So that's the security play. Your data stays where it is. A Zap allows you to pull that data and create a webhook, which is now available to a chatbot, and that chatbot is able to answer all the questions real time coming in from your clients, and that gets plugged into their website. So still part of the whole digital journey, where now you have gone from just the content creation piece to a flow, and now to supporting efficiencies in the business. So this is just an idea of how AI hooked into your, so I call it AI engineering. How AI engineering hooked into your existing ecosystem allows for the benefits that people claim AI can provide. And that's true. So this is the benefits part. This is the great part of what AI can bring to the businesses here. Any questions so far? Any specific interest in tools, areas that people the group here wants to see or hear about? Okay. So bringing it all together. So that was the message. That is an idea in terms of what we can get. And then I did mention this before. So depending on how big you are, you could be a solo entrepreneur, or you could have a small team, but not an agency, not a digital agency, right? Or you're a digital agency that is serving businesses and doing their digital media for them. So depending on where you are in your journey and the type of business, what we have outlined is a structure saying, don't start with 10 or 15. Let's start with your existing ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, you can then expand with plugins and also try and utilize the existing features. But think of how you want to implement it differently. Think of how you want to start ramping up to get the benefits or entitlement out of your pricing and your licenses. A lot of times, a lot of tools don't really give you the benefit that you want. Sometimes the existing tools work towards the entitlement of those licenses and add on a few more features is rather more powerful than adding, a few more tools in your toolkit. But I do want to show, which I'll show in a little bit, so remind me if I don't, that it's important to first outline your ecosystem and then go look at the marketplace that you have. Because even within your LLM models, there is a marketplace. We'll touch upon the marketplace for Claude. We'll touch upon the marketplace for OpenAI. And perhaps we'll also look at Gemini and see how that makes a big difference here. So again, we looked at any specific thing I didn't cover in here. I think I did. Now, Sprout Social, I didn't mention. It's another tool like the SEM Rush for SEO. These are massive tools, and I did have SEM Rush open here somewhere. Yep. So SEM Rush has been around forever, and they just now released AI PR. They also released AI for visibility and SEO. But with that, there's also pricing associated. So that's what I want people to keep in mind. As an alternate to that, and this is because I was asked a question in one of my previous sessions on what are the SEO tools. I did have Conductor here. I have so many screens open. Let's see. Oh, also, this is just like Buffer, inexpensive, nimble. If you're just starting off, here is a tool, Adaptify, which I thought does a brilliant job with SEO. It starts by taking in, let's say, your URL, and it runs a scan to get you started with your SEO. Where it does a keyword research, it'll show you what keywords are ranking, and then it presents a content creation strategy along with backlinks. So it gives you a starting point, and from there, it has AI plugins that allow you to refine and improve on the SEO for that site. Yep, and then Conductor was here somewhere too. Any questions while I dig into some of the tools here that have been pretty effective? Oh, here it is. Yep. So with Conductor, which I did use for one of our big clients, it allows for you to create a draft starting with the heavy keywords. So let's say if I'm starting with digital transformation, right, as an example. What it does beautifully, if I'm still logged in, yep, is as you type in, it is telling you what, and this is the old way of looking at things and the new way. So it ties in SEO, but it also in the later part allows you to refine it based on the generative aspects of search engine. So let's say I said that was wrong. So let's say, all right, my favorite one, right? Digital transformation. I put that in, it's going to look up, it's going to say, well, that is a little high on your monthly search volume. Great, put that in, but there are a few others that you might want to tie. Anyone who has done SEO or now, in the space of generative search engine knows to take a combination. So you have that strategy and it gets refined with AI as you move down the line before you publish. So let's say we put that in, it helps you evaluate what your standard SEO volume is going to be. And then in your next, okay, great. So let's say we're moving along. It does a competitor analysis here, and it takes into account, is this going to show up in both your standard SEO or includes ads? It also includes, is it going to pop in your generative modules where references are provided? And then it allows you to move on with the search selection. Again, I'm not doing this in a very elaborate way right now, but that at that point, it allows you to, oh, I don't want to create a profile. Okay, let's just go ahead. And then from here, it allows you to create specifications, create document, create the research, and then apply AI tools to build your content. So that was just an example. And we can come back to specific examples and exact data if we have time. All right, so that was our toolkit. If we were in a workshop kind of module and we had extra time, we can always do a few hands-on sessions. But what I will leave this slide in for is anyone who is new and anyone who's trying to ramp up can try some of these things hands-on. There are prompts in here. There are the tools that we have mentioned. You can pick one of those tools in that area, in that spot, and try to see how it benefits you. All right, so this is a resource library of the tools that we mentioned. And in here are also some of the links that you can keep an eye out for in terms of how things are moving along. Like, what are the big changes that are happening in the industry? I have to add one more, which I forgot, but I'll do that after this call. All right. This is I would not say shameless plug, I'm going to say proud plug. This is a plug to say one of the tools that we are deploying is myndQ.ai, and this is an AI conducted practice interview tool set, which allows for candidates to assess themselves and get ready for real jobs using their own personal profiles, which is secure, of course, and get ready for the roles that they want to pursue. And this is only the first module of many to come in the space where we are looking for empowering talent with AI to reach their goals. Now, here's what we're going to move on to next? And we are halfway there. So we are going to start looking at the frontier AI providers and their specific settings, their weaknesses and strengths in terms of the actual technology. Last time, what we discussed was their strengths and weaknesses in terms of security. Today, we'll see how to manage that security if you have to, and the considerations that you would have. So, any questions on the tools, platforms, or use cases that you would like to bring up before we start talking about the frontier AI providers? Actually, I do have a question for everyone, right? So we spoke about the tools, platforms, some use cases. Does anybody want to just get off mute and probably share experiences of what you have seen working or what tools you've been using for the benefit of the group before we start looking at the AI providers? Any experiences you want to share? Okay, so let me rephrase the question one more time before I move on. Of the tools that we discussed, which ones, if any, have you guys tried out or are being used in your day-to-day operations? Canva? Yep, not a surprise. It's a very popular tool across the board. Now, it has great features. And there is a free tier, right? There's a free service tier as well that benefits a lot of people, including students. Buffer, yes, another good one. ChatGPT. ChatGPT, yes, and it is actually very good, and we'll see that in terms of creating very generic. If you don't have a very specialized requirement, but if you want efficiency in your day-to-day action, ChatGPT is a great place. Okay, cool. So that's great. And if you have any, please keep posting that. We might even take a look and talk about other tools or questions as we move along, maybe in a little bit right after the AI providers chat. All right, so let's take a look at AI providers. And what I've done here is really outlined as of February 2026, right? Who are the big players in this whole AI space? And what is their market position? What makes them the sort of models, which is state-of-art models? And what are the strengths and weaknesses that they pit against each other, along with security policies? Somebody had asked in the first session, show us how to change the security policies. We're going to look at that. And also the various models within the provider. So it's always important not to just think of, let's say, OpenAI or Google, because within that, they have a whole bunch of model families or new model versions coming out. And each one is set up differently in terms of the security and strengths. And here we have OpenAI, Anthropic, yes, Microsoft, Perplexity. Is there any other model that you guys wanted to think about that's not mentioned? We'll jump right in here. Okay, so OpenAI, as you can see, and I'm going to start with some screen sharing because what everyone sees with OpenAI is the screen, right? You have your new chat, you create a new chat, or you have your apps. But there is also another aspect to OpenAI, and that is their platform. Now, I don't know how many people have actually worked and have digged into OpenAI as it presents itself through the platform. The platform allows for what is used as a foundation in application building. So all of these products, which are built on top of ChatGPT, essentially utilize the feature sets that are available here. They do, and some of them even use the agentic flows that are available here. So that is important to know because when you plug in, let's say you go back here and now you're looking at plugging in a tool set. What you're taking into account from a capability standpoint and security standpoint is the security module of OpenAI, but then also the security standard of the product that you're integrating into. Now, at this point, I do want to mention that in the previous section, I made a point saying, start with an LLM that supports your marketplace, your tool sets, right? And that is how you can get the best out of it. So here is the screen in OpenAI for you to explore and look at the products that you want to integrate into and test run them to see what features have been exposed for you to link into your chats. So if I had a chat here and I wanted to integrate a tool, I could actually integrate Canva. So for those who are actually working in ChatGPT, you integrate your Canva, and then this allows you to push your content into Canva. There you added some more efficiency. Or you can reverse read from Canva the pitches or the decks that you had created and then create new versions of that content. So this is an example in continuation with that thought to show how looking at your app integrations is critical. And there are a bunch. So we also looked at, I believe Notion is in here too. We had, Conductor is in here. So OpenAI has the largest marketplace. That is their one huge advantage. And as you can see, a lot of productivity tools are based off of ChatGPT, and not so many are based on Claude, which I'll show you right now. However, Claude has its own amazing advantages in the corporate world. So any questions or specifications that you want to see or settings you want to see in on ChatGPT? I do want to show where the settings for security are in here. So do you see security settings? Always remember to go and look at what you have given permissions for. We do this for our clients when we do GDPR or PII, but when we come to AI land, sometimes we forget that those same opt-in, opt-out permissions have to be provided in here as well. So take a look at how you have your security settings set up, both for your apps, as well as which ones are enabled and disabled, as well for your personal account. So do take a look at that. Let's see, what else? Oh, and then there was one question early on saying how do I turn on and off my training data? So if you look at this turn on temporary chat, this is where whatever you put in is not going to be, even in this free model, even in this free version or personal version, it will not be utilized for training their new incoming models. But if you don't have this on, then you automatically are giving permissions to them to take your information and use it for training. So that was one pointer I did want to bring up here. Let's look at Claude. So what is the advantage of Claude? In Claude, there are two major things that is actually taking Claude to a whole new level. One is their coder. If you are, and again, not everybody wants to be in coding, but we are at a point with AI where some quick tool sets, with some quick, like I want to create a form, I want to create a quick game, I want to create a quick quiz. This is coming down to lines of prompting. So you can actually have legit artifacts, which would have been lines of code somebody writing, available to you in Claude as a way, or even codex. OpenAI just put in codex, but you can prompt in and say, create I can't type. AI has taken away my typing skills for me. Create a quiz board for 5. Okay. And you send that through, it allows you. I'll put this in here. So that is going to create the script. And then I say create an artifact, which will then, start creating the artifact for me. So this becomes an artifact. And I do have a few here from before, or they have some examples where you can actually look at these. And these are live working screens. These are not just text-based material. This is where Claude has a massive power over any of the other LLMs or frontier models that we have today. The other piece is projects. So you can create a project, and under this project, you can say, okay, I'm just going to type in something, just indicator right now. So if you're creating an RFP response, again, these are questions I'm trying to answer in terms of practicality from some previous sessions. You can build in memory. These are the settings that you have in your profile. You can put in instructions around what you're trying to do. I can say creating RFP response. All right. And you can elaborate on this using your prompting skills that we did talk about in the first intro session. You can put in a large amount of files and you can connect. Again, this is where the integration piece has started to expand what we can do with AI beyond just a prompt here and there. GitHub, I have GitHub here because we do product development and GitHub is where our code resides. But you also have the Google Drive, if you have stored in Google Drive, or you can create integrations, which are also available in your settings. You can create integrations to other marketplaces and utilize that in your projects. In here, the good part is within projects, you can create templates. Let's say create an intro or digital. Again, if this is a standard template or a prompt that I've created, it goes right into my final document, which will be my final prompt into a project. So it's going to create a compelling story. It'll put it's going to show all the pictures and images, and it probably has memory from some of the things that I have put. So it'll ask the right questions, and it'll start creating based on the information or context that you're providing. Now, be careful about what context you're providing based on whether this is a pro version or not. Pro version is secure, more secure, I would say, than a free version. Free content is utilized for training. Always remember this, they take anything that is not paid for, automatically goes into the training modules. And that's clear on most platforms in terms of how they utilize your data. If you are into a pro version, more often than not, that is where there are policies for them to not allow to take in your data for training, or if you have explicitly set those settings of don't use my data for training. So there are two things you have to keep in mind. But based on all the information and the memory that I have set up, it created this introduction. Now, anytime I have an RFP, which obviously I've been using this, we have been using, it's a team account. So that's the other thing. You can create team accounts and really have things for the team to utilize without having to redo the same thing. And if you have approved templates, all you need to do is all you need to do is post them into your responses rather than having to review them 100 times. So there are all these features that you want to take a look at. You want to take a look at your settings. You want to take a look at creating projects for your standard operating procedures or standard operating activities. Create templates for your responses. And then leave the approval process, the final human in loop process for the verification or the review at the end. This saves a lot of time, builds a lot of quality responses because it allows you to think of the aspects that you've not thought of before. And in doing so, please keep in mind your connectors. Your connectors are your marketplace. They help you to manage your pricing. They help you to manage what context you're going to pull in so you have a better response, and then obviously privacy and billing. So those are the things that I would say at a high level, being in consulting and having helped large clients, these are the things, and they apply to us in small businesses as well. These are the things that typically, are your considerations, the levers that you pull and push to make things work for you. All right. So Claude and OpenAI. Let's take a look at, as I was talking through this, I did mention that if it is a paid version, so there's a pricing tier, right? APIs are anything that is connected into an API. So for myndQ, it's a recruitment, it's a talent-related application, PII, it uses APIs. And with APIs, that data is housed for no training. So that is where we look into security and privacy policies and secure the information. In terms of how you want to use it, what each one is best for, I'm going to say OpenAI is definitely a very popular one, but Anthropic's Claude is actually catching up to be so much better in the enterprise arena. Now, Google Gemini, again, there are a few things that I do want to point out. Google does train on anything that goes into search. So anything that you put into your search, just like the keywords that we used to think about, your prompts are their intellectual property. They take it in because they serve you back something. So search with Gemini is definitely used in training for the search engines. But you have the pro version, which is utilized. It's a paid module, and that can be utilized in a secure way. They have APIs again. So with Google, just like in Microsoft, there are tiers. So you have the Google Cloud tier, secure. Then you have the Google console, which I'll show you in just a minute. Let me pop it so there's a visual to it. So here, this is the Gemini that a lot of us see and use. But then there is also this Google API Studio, where you can do exactly what I showed you on the OpenAI platform. This is where the integrations happen. This is where you have the additional AI functionalities that you typically hear about that allows for the AI ecosystem to grow and build, but you don't see it if you're not into coding. Same thing for Microsoft. While I'm here, I just want to show you these screens and separate them out so you know what you're looking at, what you're paying for, and what are the security policies that you're working with. So you have Copilot. This is, and again here, because Copilot takes after ChatGPT, it has ChatGPT 5 now, I believe. There's things that you have to keep in mind. There is, under Microsoft, you have Microsoft 365, which is for the business. With business, you will see a security shield. Your data is protected by the enterprise data protection. If you are on personal, the screen might look very similar, but your personal data, unless you work on those settings that I did mention, is automatically used for training. So your information can go in for the model training. There are two aspects to that as well. Some of these take the data that you provide for model training. The others don't take the data for training, but they hold your prompts, just like I mentioned in Gemini. So Gemini may not take all of your data, but it will definitely take your prompts as the keywords that you input in. So there are two aspects of what they can or cannot utilize based on your inputs. And then, so remember, if you're on personal, do check your settings. Ensure that, if you are putting in something that is copyrighted or you don't want to have your intellectual property getting out, that you make sure that it's a temporary chat. And those settings are always here on the side. If you see a green shield that tells you that you are protected by enterprise data protection, which is typically what would happen in a business environment like ours. So even as a small business, we want to make sure that our data is safe, it's private. Then you have apps. Now these apps, Google will integrate, Gemini will automatically allow you to integrate into the whole Google ecosystem. That's out of the box, that's their strength, and it is seamless. So those integrations just happen. In here, you can choose to integrate into your apps, but Entra, which is the security module for managing your administrative policies, will define who sees what and who can utilize what. Beyond that, in small and big enterprises, if you are on the Microsoft platform, you can utilize the Copilot Studio to actually create agents. And then you can utilize your Power Platform Admin Center to ensure that your security policies that are applicable for your regular Word or whatever productivity also apply to the data that's available for the bots. So yes, I might be able to use an agent in Teams, and my colleague might be able to use that agent in Teams just the same way. But what I will be able to use as context and the responses will be based on, let's say, the SharePoint documents that I have access to, versus that person, my colleague, is going to be able to get responses based on what they have access to. So that's how Microsoft defines security, and hence it's kind of favored in a lot of corporations and enterprises, including the government cloud. We do work with government a lot, and they have Azure and the government cloud that does utilize a lot of Microsoft products. Okay, so this was the Google Studio. I did pop that in here. In here, there's a new feature for Gemini. Okay, they do have the gems, which is, and here's where remember, if you're in the previous section, Google has a little bit of a branding distribution. Like they have a few different things where their solutions are. We have the standard chat, then you have the gems in here, which is like templates for you guys to use. And then you would have a notebook here, which is like the projects. So if you want to have projects going on, you want to create like, I showed you the aspect of how to create projects and templates to reuse in Claude. A similar kind of mindset is here, but it really takes into account a lot of your Google related applications and workspaces. Let's see. There was one other thing here. There was the VO engine for Google. So that is your video module, because Google is so strong in terms of your vision module. They do allow for another platform of theirs to build automated videos if you want to use that in your content creation. So they're distributed. You just need to know that each one exists within the Google umbrella. Okay, so that's that. And then Perplexity. So Perplexity, if you want to use Perplexity, they do have a paid version, but they also have the free version. And their strength is around research. They have existing research aspects that they have set up. So finance, right? If you're into a finance field and you wanted pre-vetted, well-defined finance research on how the stocks are going to play in and some, AI-based predictions around that, do come in and try some of their existing preset research modules for finance. Same with travel. They also have sports now. Yeah. So if you're a sports fan or into sports from a professional perspective, Perplexity really allows you for deep research. And the best part is they also provide you with references. So it is substantiated. So any research that you see and any predictions that they provide you are substantiated with where is that data coming from. They do take your prompts in for training. So they are, again, search-based. So think about it this way. If you're search-based, your prompts are very important to them. They've taken your prompts for training. Unlike in the previous days, you had the keyword, like, oh, which keyword is surging, which is trending. So that's what you have over there. Copilot we spoke about. I don't know if a lot of people are going to work with Grok. That is really tied into the XAI ecosystem, but it has a there are new tie-ups coming up. So maybe that'll show up in your, your day-to-day off X space very soon. It has tremendous reasoning, and it really works like an untaped, unconstrained human responses, right? That's what it is meant to be with the open speech philosophy, and that's what it is trained to do. It does use data for training again. So you have to be looking at, are you on premium or are you looking at the X platform and then integrating through APIs? All right, and then finally, I'll just quickly touch upon Meta and DeepSeek. I don't know if any one of us is really going to host a DeepSeek model or a Meta model unless we are building platforms. These are open source. They need open weight. They need to be self-hosted and managed. They have their own advantages. But at the level of day-to-day operations in a small business, if you're not a software firm, I don't know if that really makes a lot of sense to put that in. Or unless you are a very high sensitive small business where all the data is extremely confidential, if you're a research lab, yes, in that case, that would be a good place to start because you self-host it and all the data resides within you. The APIs are also self-hosted. So then only consideration is what cloud you host in. All right, so those were the security aspects that we spoke about. And then the next few slides are essentially just outlining that in detail, which I did show you on the screen. But these will be available to you for references after this call. And yep, each one of those has that thing. And then in here, this is a quick reference for when you're looking at any of these providers and what tier you're using, if you're using a consumer tier or an enterprise tier, and do you want to look at the data? Do you want to allow that data to be used for training? And is it compliant? So this one was a quick summary to show the considerations, again, the sensitive business data considerations. All right, any questions? I want to leave the last minute or so if there is anything left here for questions or discussion. Okay, looks like we're good. And we are at the end of the hour. So thank you, everyone, and hope these sessions have helped you, to either start or move along your AI journey. That would be the best thing for me to know and hear.
Thank you, Yash, and thank you everyone for joining today. I mean, this was very helpful for me. I did not know you could maneuver settings in ChatGPT even. So I definitely learned a bit. But thank you everyone for joining. A reminder that we do have a fourth session. So I'll send out a registration link in the follow-up email with that information if you would like to sign up. But just a last thank you to Yash for leading today's webinar, and hopefully we'll see you all very soon.
Great. Thanks you for having me. Take care.
Thanks, Yash.